All right, welcome everybody. I'm really excited to have Jonas Rosen here with us today. He has a great YouTube channel called Cosmic Consciousness with Jonas. The channel is dedicated to asking life's big questions, like exploring this beautiful and strange universe we find ourselves in. So I highly encourage you to join his channel. Hey Jonas, welcome. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, thank you. And it is a pleasure and an honor, I must say, to be here with you and talking to you about, the beautiful and strange mystery of life, huh? And the topic of DMT as well, I think, is it's really just one of the most incredible and fascinating topics that I've ever come across. And I do feel very strongly and very passionate about it because I genuinely believe that this is a key to getting new insights about this miracle of life, and how beautiful and infinite and bizarre and incredible life really is, which we're obviously a part of. So yeah, it's good to be here today.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking the time. Now, I know you've been really involved with DMT and consciousness expansion and really kind of connecting to the universe and trying to find the truth for several years. When did you start your YouTube channel?
Yeah, so the YouTube channel was started about 5 years ago now, and really up to that point, I had been very interested in spirituality, in meditation, in consciousness, but it was really my experiences with DMT and a few other psychedelics as well. Mushrooms played a role, that just gave me this. I don't know. It turned from a interest of mine to really my entire life's focus, my passion. After these experiences, a lot of what the I had heard and read about these spiritual teachers sharing about the divinity of life and the nature of consciousness and awakening, all of these suddenly became real. They became
Mm,
like a direct experience for me, rather than just kind of a concept in the mind. Suddenly I saw these things to be true through these psychedelic experiences. I realized very clearly that, there's so much more to life than we are immediately aware of. There's so much more going on here than what we can immediately perceive. And there's also so much more to what we are than this body mind, than this
hmm.
lifetime, this identity. So right now, on some level, I am Jonas, but on a deeper level, there's this deeper essence to what we are, that pure aliveness, that pure consciousness, the only thing about us that has never changed since we were born. That is divine. It is
Mm.
divine, and it is beyond this lifetime. It is infinite.
When we started to meet and communicate, I mean, I was made aware that, of course, you're firmly rooted and grounded in reality, and meaning that you're very interested in psychology and actually, don't you study for that? Give us a little bit of an idea there, because I think it's a good foundation in regards of where you're coming from and how you're applying your experience with DMT, so to speak, in the real world, but using it to really help yourself and hopefully help our listeners to really understand how DMT and how consciousness awareness works.
Yes, and I'm so glad that you said that, and that's really beautifully put as well. I am studying psychology, and I do really hope to apply kind of all this, all of what I've learned so far, towards healing, towards awakening, the both myself and the people around me, because we're really in need of evolution as a human family right now. But I mean, I think it is a really important point to recognize that, yes, while these psychedelic mystical experiences with DMT, they're so far removed from our day-to-day, they're so different from our day-to-day human experience, and yet
Hmm.
while having those experiences, while encountering that, it's incredibly important to stay firmly grounded in science and rationality, and combining those kind of mystical insights with how to live your life better on a practical day-to-day level. And I also think, the where we're at right now in terms of science, for me, I'm still firmly grounded in science. I think that there is this kind of false separation, or this false dichotomy between science and spirituality. A lot of people in mainstream science, they think that spirituality has nothing to do with science, but I see it very differently. I actually see them as overlapping, and actually starting to come together and merge together in really new and fascinating ways, especially as we learn more about consciousness and quantum physics. But fundamentally, science is about observing the world around us, like looking at the laws of how things work, and then trying to make sense of them. And spirituality for me is the exact same process. It's using your direct observation and then thinking through what are the implications of that direct observation. The only difference for me is that science, the focus of science, is more outwards into the universe, whereas spirituality is taking that exact same perspective, but turning it inwards. So you're turning that process, that scientific process of direct observation and kind of forming hypotheses and testing hypotheses, you're turning it inwards into the essence of yourself, into consciousness itself. And so for me, it's obviously incredibly important that science and spirituality are both considered as we're exploring the mystery of life. And I think as well that as humanity continues to learn more and to grow more and to explore some of the mysteries around DMT and ayahuasca and other psychedelics, that we start to open to this idea that science and spirituality are not necessarily separate. In fact, they are deeply intertwined. And at the end of the day, they're both exploring the same fundamental existence. They're both exploring the same mystery of life, So they're really starting to merge together in new and incredible ways. So.
Yeah. What I found really interesting when I learned about you and when we started our conversation is that, your experience with DMT is quite unique, because it's something that you have done plenty of time. So I was really excited to have you on and really learn from you in regards of what DMT does, what it is, and how it possibly can help us to learn more and discover further truth about ourselves and the connectedness with everything. So maybe let's get started. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the function of DMT, like, in a nutshell? Not that I'm asking you to explain everything and then all the details when it comes down to molecular structure and so, but just give us a little bit of an idea from your perspective, DMT and how it works.
Yeah, well, where to begin? So one of before even exploring the DMT experience itself, DMT is a fascinating mystery, because this molecule, so for people who may not know, DMT is one of the most powerful psychedelic molecules that we are aware of, that has extremely profound effects on consciousness and can induce these powerful spiritual experiences that mystics and sages have kind of described all throughout history. But even before exploring the nature of the DMT experience itself, it's very fascinating, because this random molecule, for some reason, is found all throughout the natural world in a huge variety of plant and animal species. In fact, pretty much every mammal species, for some reason, DMT is naturally found within their biology, and the same is true for humans. So DMT is produced endogenously in the human body, which means it's just a natural byproduct of the chemical processes in the human body. We really have no idea what role it plays on a scientific level. We have no idea what role it plays in the functioning of the human physiology, and it's just kind of there, and we're not really sure why or how. Some people do theorize that it's produced in the pineal gland of the brain. There is some discussion as to the validity of that. We're not 100% sure. Some people also theorize that DMT plays a role in dream states, as well as it has been reported that DMT is released in the brain in very high quantities around birth and around death. So that has really interesting implications. Now, there's still a lot of progress to be made in terms of the scientific, studying of the role and the function of DMT in the body. But the fact that it does seem to be released in high quantities, especially around near-death experiences and at the time of dying, that has some really interesting implications for how it might relate to consciousness and the transfer of consciousness into the body and out of the body.
Interesting. Now, there's a plant called, I believe, ayahuasca. Is that correct? Something that is grown or is being used by native tribes in South America?
Yes. So ayahuasca is actually not the name of a plant. It's the name of the plant brew. So they take ayahuasca has been used for thousands of years. It's really like this ancient sacrament that has been made and consumed for thousands of years by shamans and indigenous people, particularly in the Amazon rainforest. In the Amazon rainforest, there are a number of plants. One is a vine which contains DMT in very high quantities, and the other is a plant called, I believe it's called the kapi plant. With the leaves have a particular type of enzyme inhibitor which allows DMT, which prevents DMT from being broken down in the stomach. So basically they mix this vine and this plant, and they boil it, they brew it for a long time, and they distill it all the way down to this very concentrated liquid, and then they drink the liquid. And so there are high quantities of DMT in there, and that does seem to be responsible for kind of the visionary experiences that people experienced when taking ayahuasca. But people make ayahuasca in different ways, and there's all these different kind of plant alkaloids in there that might contribute to the nature of that experience. But yeah, so ayahuasca is a, for me, it's really like a sacred gift. It's really like a divine gift to encounter ayahuasca, because there seems to be kind of an intelligence to this substance somehow. I mean, I really don't know how else to put it, because the nature of the experience when you consume ayahuasca, not only do you have these profound spiritual visionary experiences where you're given new insights into your own the essence of your being, as well as your own psychology, any issues that you might be dealing with, but it's also a very healing experience. And a lot of the people, when they consume ayahuasca, they describe Mother Ayahuasca. And Mother Ayahuasca, the only way to, I mean, my understanding, I have tried ayahuasca in the past, for full disclosure. I didn't have this experience of meeting some kind of feminine Mother Ayahuasca entity. I still had a really profound experience, which I'm happy to share more about. But the reason I say that it has an intelligence is because the plant, it's almost like it's scanning your every level of your being and identifying where there might be some issues that need working on. You know, all these psychological traumas or issues that we kind of maybe are avoiding in our lives or burying deep down because they're uncomfortable in a lot of ways. They're not always so pleasant to look at. And but at the same time, by confronting those, by meeting them face to face, while Mother Ayahuasca holds our hand and shows this to us gently, and not so gently as well sometimes it's a very painful, uncomfortable process, but through that process, there's so much healing and growth that happens, and it really is like a miracle. It's like an absolute miracle. And something really amazing is starting to happen now, where our modern sciences are starting to take notice of this, and so more and more research is being done into how ayahuasca might affect us on a psychological level, from the standpoint of treating depression, treating anxiety, treating trauma, and even treating addiction. There's been some really interesting research as to, bringing addicts, people who are addicted to a variety of substances, be it alcohol or cocaine or some heavy serious drugs, heroin even, and they do a few sessions of ayahuasca with them, and a remarkable number of people, almost, around 70% of people from the research I'm aware of, quit cold turkey. Like their addiction is fully healed after just a few sessions with ayahuasca. And I want to emphasize how incredible that is, because all of our other addiction treatments, like to have one single dose of medicine create that kind of a profound impact is really unprecedented. It's unlike anything else that we are aware of. Our other most advanced addiction therapies can only heal maybe like 5 to 10% of people. So this is a very incredible, a very, very profound and very powerful substance.
Yeah, so I mean, for me it's always interesting to understand and the realization, once you're aware that we're connected with the universe, all the energy is flowing through us, that we have access to incredible energy source, that we're able to tap into that, and that life-changing events and experiences can happen rather quickly. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what your experience were? Maybe because, it will help us to maybe understand a little bit from a first-person perspective on, what happened.
Sure, yeah. And that was really nicely said, too. It is probably... For me, when I did DMT, so I did DMT several dozen times, and when you take DMT, if you take a sufficient dose of DMT under the right circumstances, you have what is called a breakthrough experience, and that is really like the that's where this is maybe the most incredible part of the entire DMT experience for me. So. Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of a description of what it feels like. So just starting with smoked DMT, ayahuasca is a different, there's a lot of similarities there, but it's also a completely different experience in a lot of ways. And it also must be said that, everyone is in a different place in their life, and everyone receives a different message or different visions from DMT and ayahuasca. At the same time, there are a lot of very interesting similarities, which I can also discuss. But yeah, so when I took DMT, first of all, it took me a little while to figure out how to consume this in the right way, because it can be a little bit tricky. But so when you first smoke DMT, it hits you almost immediately, like within a few heartbeats, within a breath, you all of a sudden you feel a huge wave of energy ripple through your body, and your whole energy just starts to vibrate and feel so alive. You take another hit, and then it's really impossible to put this experience into words, but I will do my best. What happened to me was looking out, suddenly it looked like everything kind of became wavy and started to kind of almost dissolve, and I took one more big hit, and you have to kind of take that third really big hit to have this breakthrough experience. And from that point, you close your eyes, you lay back. It's a fully internal experience, which it's a little bit different from other psychedelics, where a lot of times you still feel very grounded in this reality. If you have a DMT breakthrough experience, it's as if you have left your body and arrived in a wholly different reality. And it cannot be understated how amazing and bizarre that direct experience feels like. So you close your eyes, and all of a sudden it felt like consciousness, like the awareness, the one who is aware of this moment right now, these words being spoken right now, the one who is aware of Jonas, it felt like that was shot out of the body. So all of my connection to Jonas and this body mind, it's like I was freed from the constraints of this body and mind, and suddenly I was traveling at enormous rate. And it's called a breakthrough experience because it feels as though you literally, there's like a membrane and suddenly you burst through it, like you're flying straight at it, like this big kind of geometric beautiful pattern. You're flying straight at it, and then like you burst right through it, and on the other side of it you emerge in, and this is where words really start to fail. Like there's no concept, there's no words or no metaphors which can really capture the nature of this experience. But you emerge in what feels, first of all, it's totally beyond space and time. So all the limitations, it's totally beyond this universe. All the limitations of space and time are suddenly gone. It's a timeless state. There's no experience of time. It feels like a divine realm. It feels like the place where we go when we die and where we came from before we were in this lifetime. I can't tell you why, but there's just this very clear sense. This is the divine realm. This is the divine realm. And there are, so as you mentioned, like that sense of connectivity to the universe, that sense of oneness and unity with the universe. And that is absolutely essential. That is at the core of this experience. So I experienced it, as I said, several dozen times. I had this kind of breakthrough experience, and every time I was shown kind of a different aspect of these beautiful, divine, sacred, heavenly realms that are beyond this universe. But I also kind of felt like after I was doing it for a while, I felt like there are levels to this experience, infinite levels to this experience. But the deeper you go, the further you go, the more deeply and intensely you feel your oneness and unity with all things, with the divine infinite source of life itself, with God. So the further that your consciousness travels, the more that all the boundaries begin to dissolve and fade away. The more intensely you feel, I am one with all of life. And to try to explain this is really impossible, because it's not possible to wrap your head around being one with all of infinite existence at the same time. It felt like I was aware of an infinite number of things at the same time. And not only that, but I was one with all of it. So like every being in the universe, every conscious entity in the universe, I felt myself connected directly to that, without any boundaries between that. And there's this other strange phenomenon where that which is being seen, that which is being observed, is not separate from the observer. So observer and observed are unified, and it's like you're inside, outside, upside down, inside out, all of it at the same time. It's like you have merged and dissolved into the infinite.
I think it's very interesting, because what you just mentioned, to me, what comes to my mind is, the typical law of attraction, right? A thing that we're supposed to do, to, wish and create things, right? Believe and you can move mountains. So I think that's kind of like, from a very earthly perspective, what we're supposed to say and what we should say in regards of affirmations and kind of really making our dreams become a reality. But on a much deeper level that you have experienced, the underlying truth to that, to me, it sounds very exciting. And it's kind of the thing that I think many of our listeners are looking for, right? It's the ultimate truth in regards of, are we connected? Are we all one? So yeah, I think that's a very good point.
Well, yeah, and just to go along with that, this is such an empowering experience, because you really see, like, in these human bodies, in these human lifetimes, we're not aware of just how immense and magnificent we are as beings. Like, a lot of people struggle with, feelings of, self-esteem and self-worth and things like that. That's of course, that's part of the human experience. That's part of this learning experience. But the deeper essence to what we are is infinite, and it really is the source of all power. It is the source of all creativity. It is like the divine infinite miracle. It is God, like within the core of our being, and and true power, that not only true power, but true peace, true love, everything that we are looking for is in the very core of our being. And that's where, this DMT experience, if used in the right way, that's where it really transitions into this living a grounded life here on planet Earth as an empowered being. Because all of the spiritual teachings on Earth, all of them are pointing within. All of them, all of the true spiritual teachers and gurus out there, they're not saying that I am the source of truth. They're saying the source of truth is within you. The main function of the guru is not to give you some piece of information that's suddenly going to unlock everything. No, it's more like they are pointing your attention inwards. They are mirroring that state of looking inwards and going deeper and deeper into the essence of our being. Because pure consciousness, that's where it all is. That's where awakening is. That's where liberation is. That's where true love and true peace is. And everything that we are looking for in the material world on a deeper, truer level, it already exists within us. And it's the spiritual path is not trying to learn some information or practice something or add more things to our being so that we can get there, quote unquote, to that place. It's more like removing all the barriers, all the illusions, all of these obstacles that have kind of been fed to us, have kind of been given to us, all the limitations and constraints that have kind of been conditioned into our mind, into the kind of programmed into the brain biocomputer. It's seeing that there is a deeper truth there, and insight is really key here. That's why DMT can provide these insights so powerfully, because then it's not like someone outside of you is telling you these things. It's coming from within you. It is a self-validated truth. It's like, okay, now I have seen this to be true, and now I have this more expansive awareness. Now I know that there is an essence to my being that is beyond this lifetime, and now I also know that that is God, that is divinity, that is the infinite source. I am one with that. I am one with the infinite creator, and it's not in like a egoic kind of way, like, oh, I'm so powerful. It's in the most humbling way possible, where it's seeing that no, this isn't about this personal individuated self. This isn't about Jonas the ego. This is about connecting on a deeper level to the truth of what we are, and then from that point living in service to everyone else, all of humanity, all beings everywhere, and the miracle of life itself.
Yeah, amazing. So let me ask you this, because we had a discussion once, and one of the things that I was really curious and interesting to me is to see, like, what was your experience after you've done, as you said, several dozen times DMT? Like, how have you been able to implement some of the experiences, some of the things that you've learned, or maybe how even just opening up your consciousness has maybe affected you and changed something in a again, going back to reality and something maybe more practical? You know what I'm trying to say?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And that is such a key question, because that's what it's all about. Like, the DMT experience is so incredible and so beautiful, but at the end of the day, more important than that is how do we apply that learning into our daily life, because I realized, like, through the DMT experience, like, I came here for a reason. I firmly believe, after all these DMT experiences, that we chose to incarnate in these bodies, like, right now. And it is such an immensely sacred gift. It is such a huge opportunity for growth and expansion of our soul, of our essence, to be here in this body, to be here on planet Earth. Like, that is truly a privilege and a sacred gift and an incredible opportunity. And yeah, it was really interesting because at first, like, these DMT experiences were so incredible. I kept wanting to go back, and keep exploring these amazing places. But after a while, I was seeing less and less. Like, I would take these big doses and I would see less and less. And suddenly I realized that I had seen what I needed to see at the time. And now it's time to take all these new insights and integrate them. So the integration stage is so important here, and it cannot be understated how important this is, because the difference between having just some interesting experiences with DMT and becoming an awakened, empowered being is the integration stage. And so I will also say that the integration stage presents huge challenges. It is not easy because, in a lot of ways, like, you've traveled outside of your body. You've seen all these, like, incredible heavenly realms where, it's all love and it's all light, and suffering and hardship doesn't exist. Like, it's all joyous and blissful and incredibly beautiful. And then you come back into this body and you look around and you see, like, the suffering that we are still causing to each other and to Mother Earth, and it's really, it hurts it's painful in a new way. And not only that, but it can feel quite isolating, because a lot of times, I mean, I'm speaking for myself, there was no one in my immediate social circle, no one in my family who really understood these type of awakening experiences. And there's really no, certainly in terms of, like, socioculturally, in the cultural context of the United States where I live, there's no understanding of this. There's no social support for how to do this integration. There's no organizations or institutions. Okay, that might be an overstatement. There are some organizations and institutions, but they're quite uncommon, certainly not in mainstream culture. Anyway, so yeah, so it's a process of, it's a gradual process of becoming, I guess the best way to put it is, when you awaken the mind, when you see that there is this deeper truth, you realize that there is more to what I am than the mind. There's some space between you and the ego. Like, you recognize I'm deeper than the ego. When you awaken the mind in that way, then you awaken the heart. And that's really what the key shift for me has been in integrating, is living more and more from the heart. And
let me just inject there for a second, because I mean, that's kind of what I experienced. I've never done DMT, at least not at this point. But I mean, just my own awareness of being, aware of the truth and being connected with everything is like that. I was more aware of the typical metaphor of, hey, just listen to your heart. And I think it's really an old truth that is, again, so wonderful, because I mean, once we are becoming aware of it, that we are able to connect, we are connected, and we're able to listen to our heart. That it's kind of like a little bit of that, that a little guide, like this internal thing that I sometimes ask the question: is this really what resonates with me? Is this really something that my heart desires? That is right? Would you maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, everything you said is pretty spot on. Like, I guess one word that you could call that is kind of intuition. So you're getting more and more in touch with, you're getting more and more intimate with what's coming from the heart. So, like, where is intuition is a really interesting thing, like where where is it coming from and how does it work? These kind of intuitive senses, like sometimes you meet someone and you kind of have like an intuitive reading of them, or you find yourself in some kind of situation in life where you have to make a decision. I go this way or I go this way. And somehow you're just drawn more towards one direction than the other. And that's a very curious phenomenon. That's very interesting. And I do believe that intuitive sense gets stronger the more and more that you live from the heart. But so for me anyway, speaking from my experience, when I was still very much in like ego identity, like this idea, I am Jonas, I am this body mind, then all of my attention was really always like, if you can imagine attention as like a ball of light in your body, my attention was always in the mind. It was always like behind where my eyes are, kind of. I don't know how to put that, but as more and more I realized, like, okay, I'm not these thoughts, I'm not this ego identity that just lives in the mind. There's a deeper truth to me in the core of my being. Then more and more I started living from the core of my being, and what that means practically is that ball of light, that attention, started to sink down more and more from my head into my chest. So like it's like the like the center of gravity almost. I don't know how to really put this, but like the center of gravity for my attention, it switched from my mind to my heart. So now more and more, like, I move through life from the heart, which means that it's really like just a state of presence. It's very simple. Like, it's nothing fancy, it's nothing like extraordinary. In a way it is completely extraordinary, but in a way it's also very ordinary. Like, just being my home in my body is now my heart, instead of my home in my body being in the mind. And it's much more peaceful, it's much more joyous, it's much more loving. Your life fills with stillness and love the more and more deeply you are living from your heart. When your attention is dropping down from out of the mind and into the body, this is like meditation. So like the practice of meditation is to move your attention out of the constant stream of thoughts and into the body. It's not necessarily to stop the thoughts or to resist the thoughts or try to prevent them, but rather just to focus your attention elsewhere. And when you do that, then the mind naturally, the thoughts slowly over time naturally settle down, and then you're just left with this stillness where there's a space between your thoughts. The space between your thoughts, in between your thoughts, what do you find there? That's a very important spiritual practice in my opinion. But so like, when you're living from your heart in this way, when your attention is in the body, as you're moving through life, as you're interacting with people, as you're doing, the day-to-day tasks of living, you're moving through life with stillness. You're not lost in this constant stream of thoughts. You're present. You're heart-centered. You're there with what you're doing. You're living fully. And for me, that's really pretty much the main difference between a awakened, empowered being versus someone who is lost in ego identity. Because when you're living from the heart, not only is that such a gift to the world, to all, because we're all deeply interconnected, and when you bring those states of peace and love and compassion into your body, you're also bringing it into the world. You're bringing it into the collective, and it's like in an effortless way. It's like when you're in this silence, this stillness of the heart, is the silence of the heart. That's really the key way to put it, I would say. The silence of the heart. When you're living from the silence of the heart, then all these things are coming up effortlessly. It's not like you're trying to be more loving. It's not like you're trying to be more compassionate or more liberated or more awakened or any of that. It's just you're here, and these things are blossoming naturally on their own accord.
Yeah, I mean, what I realized, and you mentioned the key word there, is effortless, is that when you're in this state and when you're aware and you're kind of thinking with your heart rather than your mind, first of all, right? I mean, you reduce your stress. I mean, you're letting yeah, the universe guide you, the energy will flow through you. And the amazing thing to me is to experience that the most powerful things, the most powerful changes that will be attracted, will come into your life, happen effortlessly. They happen, without any effort whatsoever, right? I mean, that's something
Mm,
that to me was very, very interesting.
beautifully said. Beautifully said. Yep, yep. And for me, this is really like the key of, you mentioned manifestation and the law of attraction earlier. And here, for me, this is the very important key. Everyone thinks that or okay, that's an exact. Not everyone thinks, but there's this kind of belief that manifestation begins with, if you change the thoughts in your mind, then you will also can begin to create a new reality, which that is an important piece of it. But it's not like you're manipulating or, tricking the existence to kind of conform to what you want. It's more like, once you go further on this process of awakening, once you find peace and love and joy from within, and you raise your consciousness, you expand your consciousness in that way, so that peace and love and gratitude and compassion and positivity, so these things are coming up naturally, effortlessly. Those feelings, that energy, that vibration is effortlessly manifesting a happier, richer, more abundant, fuller life, where the more you bring gratitude into your body, that feeling, not just the thought like I am grateful, but connecting with that feeling in your heart, in your body, the more you bring gratitude into your body, the more life gives you things to be grateful for. is the way that I see it. So for me, true manifestation, it's not about trying to control or manipulate reality. It's more about settling in to this present moment and finding all the things that I am already super grateful for, and super just sharing, giving my love and my gratitude to life, not to any being in particular or to any god in particular, but to everything. Just like the sun giving off light in all directions, just bringing that into my body and just radiating gratitude in all directions. Like, thank you for another day. I mean, I know that this life is a miracle. I know this is a special opportunity. Like, thank you, life. And
Right.
when you do that, and when you connect with that feeling, then wow, that really begins to transform your life. Because as we were talking about, everything is interconnected, and on a deeper level, everything is one. And so kind of the outer world that we see around us is in many ways interconnected to the inner world in a more fundamental, deeper level than we can perceive with our senses. The external world is a reflection of the inner world. And when you're able to do that, when you're living as this kind of heart-centered being, where you're you're bringing this positivity into the world, then life will reflect that. Life will begin to transform. And a key mechanism for that is synchronicity. All these things will start popping up in your life. Also, intuition. You'll suddenly start being guided intuitively in certain directions towards certain things. And things will start coming together in the most amazing way. Like, life will reciprocate your gratitude. It will give you more things to be grateful for. And that, for me, is true manifestation.
Yes, absolutely. Because I think, our ego, our mind, the way we're schooled is right away jumping to this typical law of attractions. And hey, let me make a bullet list. Let's create more money. Let's create a nicer car, vision
Right.
boards, and so forth. And I think there's definitely a truth to it, and I think there's definitely something that can be useful tools. But I think ultimately we need to have that underlying foundation that you spoke about over the last 40 minutes here, that when we are aware, when our consciousness is open up, and when we're aware that we are one with everything, and letting primarily guide at us and change us from within, I think that's really the key to everything.
Yes, that is completely the key. That is completely the key. And I mean, it's also this recognition, that at some point nothing really needs to be added. Like at some point you recognize that on a deeper level, we already are complete. Like we already are whole. We already are infinitely worthy of everything. And there's nothing that necessarily has to be added to this moment to make it more peaceful or more fulfilled, because it's already there within us if we just know how to get in touch with it, you know? And so at that point, it's like I don't even necessarily need to manifest more money or, you know, a nicer car or a nicer house. Like these things bring temporary happiness, but on that kind of deeper fulfillment, that deeper level of wholeness and completion, it comes from within. It only ever comes from within. And when you really, the funny thing is that when you really connect to that, then life begins to, you know, as I said, bring you more and more abundance, more and more stuff to be grateful for. And it's like a I don't know, it's awesome.
Yeah, awesome. Well, hey, listen, I mean, I think it was definitely a great discussion, a lot of insight, a lot of curiosity, especially from my side, I have to say, you know, because I mean, it's a path, it's a journey, right? We're all on this journey to wanting to explore, wanting to really know what's the truth, what does it mean to be one with everything. I think we'll never really find the exact answer, but I mean, just the journey itself, I mean, I think is so exciting, and I really appreciate your time and your insight and your honesty and openness to speak with us today here. And as I said earlier, you have a great YouTube channel. There's a lot of great content out there for people to learn a little bit more and get more involved. Any closing thoughts?
Not really. I mean, it was. Thank you for talking to me. It was honestly such a pleasure for me. Like I always love talking about this stuff. It's really my passion. But I mean, as you said, yeah, that's also the important thing. Like we could really talk forever about this stuff. You know, there's always more questions, but at the end of the day, it will always be a complete mystery. You know, like there will never be a answer to some kind of key insight where suddenly everything comes together and everything is figured out. It's really more about like exploring this mystery and having a great time doing it, you know, and that's what it's all about.